So let's go over some other settings. Next up, you have the amount of pages. This tells you from which page to which page should it be printed out. So basically, if we say that we have 24 pages max, so if I go to page 24, it should not allow me to go any higher. Even if I set it to 27 pages, it will finish at 24 because basically there's only this many pages here. So that's it. Next up, you have the print one-sided. So basically, this is to only print on one side of the page. Basically, you all know that the page has two sides. So it can in some printers you have the automatic option of printing out it in both ways, but if you have a printer like this one, which basically has no way to do it, it just slides out one piece of paper and prints on it. It will wait for you to input this the sheet of paper back into the printer and then press a button. Depending on your printer, it should show you in the manual how to input the paper so it could be properly printed on both sides. You can also print on both sides, as I said, print on one side. And this setting actually changes the flipping of the page depending on the model of your printer. It will be either enabled or disabled. Next off, we have the collated option. This option is used only when you have multiple copies over here. This area over here, you change the amount of copies that are printed out. So basically, one copy means one copy of all the pages which are marked over here or over here. So if we change the amount of pages here 10 to 10, you have 10 pages, and you have, if you change the amount of copies to 2, you will have 10 pages but printed twice. So basically you will have 20 pages. If you have 3 copies, you will have 30 pages basically. So the collated view is used when you have more than one copy. So if you have 2, 3, etc. There are 2 types of collated view. First off is the collated, and second off is the uncollated. The collated one is used when you have many pages, as I said, and they're printed out as 1, 2, 3. So in our example, it would be from 1 to 10. It would print from 1 to 10 and then begin the second copy again from 1 to 10, and then it would begin the third copy again from page 1 to 10. The second option would be it would print out page 1 3 times, page 2 3 times, one after another, page 4 3 times, etc. So basically this is what it does. Next up, you have the portrait orientation. This tells the Excel sheet how the page will be orientated. And what I mean by that, I will simply show it to you. You can see the A4 page simply flipping to the side. So either you have the horizontal or the vertical view of the page. Basically, that's all that it does. But also notice one thing, that when you have a long, let's say a very long piece of data but very thin, then it's good to have it in the portrait orientation. But when your data is rather wide and short, then it's much better to use it on the landscape orientation. Our type of data will be much better seen if we show it on the portrait orientation, so let's leave it at this orientation right now. Next off, you have the page size. Well, right now we have the letter page size, so this would be 21 by 27 centimeters. Depending on your metric systems, you could use the inch one, which is for let's say over here 5 by 7 inch. So let's use the most typical in Europe page outcome, it would be the A4 format, which I guess is the most universal one. So the A4 format. So this would be printed out on an A4 page. Basically, you could choose more paper sizes depending on your printer, as I said. I would ask you never to print out, or because this is really unprofessional, and I really met with this situation many times when people print out pages on the A4 format and then they print out data like this, like seen over here, and then simply cut it out with the scissors and stick it with I don't know, some scotch tape or some glue. This is very unprofessional and really seen really well, that's not well seen in business world. So if you want to learn how to use printing, please don't do that. If you have to use the more paper sizes, you can always find more paper sizes here over here, because I do not have the proper printer, but usually if you would have the proper printer, you could use the A3 size, A2 size if you have a plotter, and a 1 size, as I said, if you have a plotter, which is the huge printer which can print really big things. You can just always remember, it's better to save your data and then print it out outside of your office maybe, and ask your boss if it would be possible to print it out in an outside business maybe, just to have it professionally printed and not stick together. Okay. This is all about printing sizes. As I said, you have the more paper sizes over here, and this is basically what I'm talking about. Here you can choose more paper sizes, but basically because my printer is rather low profile, let's say, so it doesn't really show many different sizes. But believe me, if you have a plotter installed, the sizes would this amount of page sizes would be much longer, and it's up to you which type of paper size you need. Next up, you have the print quality, and this basically tells the printer how much ink it should use up for the quality of the page. Usually it's set up to medium because it tries to save as much of ink as possible, because when you use the low quality, it usually loses a lot on the quality of the picture. Of course, depending on if it's a black and white table or a printed out picture with some charts or anything like that. So usually you use the medium one, but when you are going on a presentation and want to show off your work, how nice and neat it is, always use the high option. Yeah, and you also have the first page number, which is well, this is much more advanced, so I won't be talking about this right now. Next up, you have the options button, but this will set you up to the printer options. So as I said, you probably somewhere in here you will also have most of the settings we had over here. Oh yes, great. Here you can see the A3 scale, A2 scale, and these are basically much bigger. Let's see if it will. To say the paper size is not supported. Yeah, as I said, it's not supported by our printer. So basically, this is not a good idea for this printer. So let's use the A4 printer, and again A4, because it would scale it to A4 on a A3 sized piece of paper, which we do not want. So that would be okay, and here you can see it's adjusted to 59% of size. Let's cancel this. Okay, so remember the 55%, we will go over them later on. So next we have the custom margins. You have the normal margins, which are the typically set up by Excel margins. Margins are over here, and they are basically the area out of which the document will not be printed out. Everything will be fit in to fit the this area in which the margins are closed. So these are the margins. I'm grabbing them right now. There are 4 of them, 4 of basic margins, and the outside margins, there are basically only 2 ones. There are also some margins for aligning the data you have inside. What I mean by that is that each column usually has a specific margin, allowing you to widen the column while you have the print view, so it would look much nicer if you fit it properly in the page this way. So you can choose a few settings, which are the normal, wide, and narrow. I recommend you to use the narrow as much as possible, basically because the narrow margin is the highest allowed by your printer margin type with the header and footer, but you can always remove the header and footer by simply going to the level of by using the margin movement to the level of the header and the footer, and this basically removes the area for header and footer and maximizes your page area. Of course, if you have a good printer, you can also move the margins to the border of your A4 page, but you would have to test this setting on your own printer. Let's say that you have a perfect printer, so let's move to the maximum border as possible. So this area would be the max for this printer. It won't go any further because the printer isn't really that good. So it changes to the custom settings when you change everything over here. Next up, you have the custom scaling. Well, what this is. Custom scaling is, let me show you. Custom scaling is basically fitting in the data into the A4 page. So this will fit your data into a piece of paper. If you use the fit the sheet on one page, it would try to fit all the data you have on one page showed over here. But basically, it's pretty much impossible to fit this much data on an A4 page. It just looks, well, really bad. Oh, actually, it's on 2 pages, if you notice over here, so it didn't even manage to fit those 2. Okay, this is best used when you have small amounts of data which you want to basically input in one A4 page, then it will shrink it automatically to fit your page. It's only in this situation it's good. Next off, you have fit all columns on one page and fit all rows on one page. Basically, we will be trying to use this one because we have maybe a long file, but it's properly narrow. If it's not, we can also shrink it or reduce the how big it is. So you can see that we have all the columns right now, but maybe not all the rows. Because if we move on, now we can see that this is fitted into 11 pages. But note one thing, we can always zoom in by clicking the Control Scroll just to see it better, that the first one is always pretty much the same. How so? Because Excel thinks that the first row is, as I told you previously, it takes the first row as the title row and it saves it so you could properly and better see the data in the piece of paper. Okay, next up you have also the page setup button. Let's click it. So, what does the page setup button do? It has much more advanced settings here. I will go over them because they are very important. So, most of these settings are in here. So basically, this is just a way of showing you the same data, the same settings, but in a different way and a bit more advanced. So first off, you have the orientation about which we were talking about. So we have the portrait orientation or the landscape orientation. Next up, you have the scaling. So right now we are fitted to one page by columns, but over here you can adjust the percentage of the size. So by adjusting it to 65%, it will shrink, but as you can see, we have 22 pages, so it's not well fitted. Let's go back. Let's fit it to one page wide by how many pages tall, we don't know. So this is what it does. We have the one page wide, this is for columns, or we can change it by rows. So if I input it for one page tall, it will screw it up, but just to show you. See how tragic it is? It didn't even manage to input it on one page. Okay, so let's go back. We don't want to use this. We only want it to fit into one page. Always try to use one of these because this is very useful and it will always make your data look much better. Okay, so next off, let's go to the margins tab. And over here you have some extra settings regarding the alignment of the margins. Over here we use the alignment by hand, but you can do the more advanced option, which is changing the margins by the number, so they would be exactly the same. For, let's say, you want to print out a separate files, but you want them to have exactly the same margins for each part. So this would be how to do it. By clicking up and down, you simply change the margins for it. You won't see them visually here, but let's just change them to 0 everywhere because we don't really need any margins right now. And 0 here. Great. And this is the smallest margin you can actually have. Next up, you have the center on page. Basically, you can center the data on the page by horizontal or vertical alignment. So if you use the horizontal, you can see it moving from left to right, because usually it's added to the left edge of the page, so it would be centered in the horizontal way or in the vertical way. Use it only when you have like a title page, because usually you don't want to use this option. Also, we have the options button over here, and they will always refer you to the printer settings, so there's no sense in talking about that again. So let's go back over to the header and footer. So what is the header and footer? I already told you, but basically this is where you can change it. If you have many pages and you want the header and footer to be identical for them, there's no problem. Let's say you want the number of a page in the header, you want a title for it. So you have the custom names for the header and footer. The custom ones would be the data, page 1 of something, number of pages, name of the file, the path of the file, anything from the list from above. Just check it out and see what the header could be for you. Or you could use a custom footer. So you could use, because there are 3 sections of the header and footer actually, the left, center, and right, depending on where you want to align it. You also have the insert number page buttons over here, the date or the time of the time and date will be always associated to the moment of printing. So when it is printed out, the date and the hour could be printed. You can also insert the file path. You can also insert the file name, the sheet name, and add some pictures, or even format a picture after inserting it. You have the instructions over here, so read them carefully, and this will guide you how to change the header to the custom view. The same goes for the footer. You have also the custom view for the footer. You have exactly the same buttons and the alignment of the sections. That's basically it for header and footer, but you still have the options below. Because header and footer will be identical for all the pages. So basically, if we have 10 pages right now, it would use a identical header and footer for all of 10 of the pages. You sometimes may want to have a title page or a script in the first page or whatever. Basically, you sometimes don't want the header and footer to be seen on the first page or maybe on any other pages. So here are the options where you can change this, and there are much more advanced options for this actually, but as I said, this is only the basic Excel. So here we have the different odd and even pages. So when you're printing out, let's say on both sides, sometimes you may want the number of the page only on the front, not on the back. So you could use this. Different first page. So this will disable the possibility of enable actually the possibility of having a different first page header and footer. Scale with document, so if you change the scale of the printed area or the scale for the print, it will also change the margins of the print. And you have align with page margins. We actually want to use this option. This will align the three separate areas as we spoke about them with the margins on the page. Okay, next up you have the sheet tab, and here you have many more options. Let's just disable the align and scale. Okay, and here you have the print area. Well, basically we didn't use this, but you can mark the area you want to be printed. This is also a bit more advanced, but maybe I'll try to show you how to do it a bit. Next up you have rows to repeat at top, columns to repeat at left. Next we have the print area with grid lines, black and white. Simple options for you to use. You could use the comments if you want them to be printed out or not. You usually don't want them. Cell errors are displayed as well. You can either display them, use a blank, use a NA, or just some dashes. So this is also an option to disable the viewing of any errors in cells regarding the functions. Next you have the page order, but you use this option only if you input multiple pages per one A4 format page. Okay, let's use the cancel option. So as I said, we want to make one copy. Let's change the sheet options to fit into one page. Maybe let's use some, over here. This is proper print for us. This is what we wanted. So we have 11 pages. And they will be printed out one under another. As I said, you could use a plotter for this and print them out one to the other, next to the other. You can always use the printer options for more custom options. There are many other possibilities. So you could use the page setup. You could also input basically. You could also print multiple pages per in one page, as I said, but these are in the printer settings, so you'd have to find them for yourself depending on the model of the printer you have. Okay, when you're all done with all the settings, you're happy with what you see over here, you can use the print button. Now let's go back a bit, and this will print out your page as it is. Let's go back to the page we have over here, and as I said previously, you also have the page break preview, and this is very useful for printing because when you zoom out, you can see the blue lines being shown right now with those little crossings over them. This tells you basically how many pages will be printed out. You can see the watermark in the background. This won't be printed because we didn't set this up. We see the watermark, and this will basically tell you how many pages you have. You can move this area as much as you want. So if you want to adjust where the page ends, that's not a problem. We just move this down, and you can see that the page number 1 will be a bit longer. And we went over the maximum amount of data that could be moved. So if we move this a bit to this moment, you will see that right now we will print out this entire workbook sheet into one page. You can also move the columns area, so this data right now will be lost and it will not be printed. You can move it in any direction you want. So the printing area is absolutely editable. It depends only on you and your preferences depending on the area you want. But remember one thing, that when you do it this way, you will always lose the gray background, because the gray background is seen by the printer as area that will not be printed. Okay, so what I want you to do right now is view the header footer options for your page, set this up for printing. Next off, you have the file print option. Next off, you want to send it to the OneNote file. So we mark it over here, send to OneNote. This way it won't be printed out on paper, it will be just saved as a file. Click the print button. Name the file as lesson 13. It will show an error because I already created a file like this, but I will overwrite it. And this way it will send the file to the OneNote option, and let's click the icon of My Documents, Quit Notes. Okay. It'll wait a second. Great. We will now use the Save As option. Move to desktop. Save it as a PNG file. Let's name it as lesson 13 as previously. Save it. Now we can close it properly. We can go out. Right now we have lesson 13 on our desktop. And you can see our data being shown as a short and small picture. I don't need all the pages, this will only show you the first one, so it doesn't really matter for us. Just show us that you can do a one-page printout, and that's basically all. This will show us all the settings. Okay, great. So thank you very much for sticking up with me until end of lesson 13. So I hope to see you in lesson 14. So thank you and bye.